What is going on, everybody? What is going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Giant Topic Podcast. I am your host, Christian Cruz, and let's just start off by saying this: if you were with us on our last stream, we were having some technical difficulties with the camera. I went back and I was watching it, even in real time, felt like I was going to have a damn stroke. So if you watched that, we definitely apologize, but rest assured we got that figured out, and that won't be an issue going forward. But what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Giant Topic Podcast. Again, I am your host, Christian Cruz. And we got some news in Giants land today, right? We got some hirings on the offensive side. Looks like this staff is kind of, locking into place here. A lot of these positions have already been filled in by John Harbaugh. And I think there's a lot to talk about. And rest assured, we are going to talk about it. I want to hear what you guys have to say as well. And we got some people in the chat here. We got Chris. Appreciate you, my brother, for stopping by. Really appreciate it, man. So let's talk about it, right? With this staff forming, right, we know that the Giants went and they hired Matt Nagy to be their offensive coordinator. On top of that, we know that they went and hired Greg Roman. He's going to be their senior offensive assistant. We know as of today, the New York Giants finally have a quarterbacks coach and a run game coordinator in Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan, he has a pretty lengthy history in the NFL. And when you look at the when you look at the players that he's coached, it's definitely enticing, right? I think a lot of people, are looking at these hirings, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and they're automatically just looking at it from the perspective of when these coordinators were head coaches, some of them, or offensive coordinators, when you're talking about Greg Roman. And understandably, these aren't the sexiest of hires, right? But I do think that these are hires, especially when you look at Brian Callahan, when you look at Greg Roman, right? These are hires that, in my honest opinion, I think that this is really going to help out this offense. I think it's really going to help out Jackson Dart and his development, right? But before we dive into Brian Callahan, before we dive into Greg Roman here, let's look at the staff thus far under head coach John Harbaugh. So, offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy. Defensive coordinator, you have Denard Wilson. Special teams coordinator, you have Chris Horton, right? Greg Roman is going to be your senior offensive assistant. Quarterbacks coach is Brian Callahan. Running backs coach is Willie Taggart. Excuse me if I pronounced that wrong. Wide receivers coach is Chad Hall. Tight ends coach is Tim Kelly. Offensive line coach, Mike Bloomberg, who I think that's actually a sneaky good hire, in my opinion, which I was very critical of Carmen Bracillo leaving this building, considering when you look at the success that he's had with this offensive line since he's, became a Giants offensive line coach. But I think that's a sneaky, hire by the New York Giants. Defensive line coach, Dennis Johnson. Right now, currently, our outside linebackers coach is going to be Charlie Bullen. We'll see how that goes. I know that he's interviewing with the Cardinals and he's interviewing with the Cleveland Browns for their defensive coordinator positions. So I think if there's anything that we've learned this offseason is to, just play these things out, kind of wait and see what happens. Let's not get our hopes up. Let's just see how the dice fall. Linebackers coach, you got Frank Bush. And lastly, defensive backs coach, you have Donald D'Alessio. So I think this is a quality staff that the New York Giants have put together. And I really do think that there's going to be smarter in-game adjustments. I think that the experience that is being brought to these players and onto this coaching staff is really going to benefit a lot of people, right? And I think that ultimately, again, you hire someone like Greg Roman, I just get excited thinking about, the run game with Scatabo, Tracy, throw in Jackson Dart, right, with his ability to create plays with his legs. I think those are guys that are due to have a breakout year, right, when it comes to the ground game. Matt Nagy, the more I thought about it, the more that I spoke with some of my Bears friends and, seeing how it was when he was the head coach and, they had Justin Fields and they had Mitch Trubisky, I feel a little bit more optimistic about that hire as an OC. And then obviously when you hire Brian Callahan, who, again, I mean, a lengthy history. He was just the Titans head coach. Prior to that, he was the Bengals offensive coordinator, Raiders quarterback coach, Lions quarterback coach, Broncos offensive assistant, Broncos quality control. I mean, he is seasoned, right? A lot of these coaches on this staff on both sides of the ball, especially even special teams. So we can really say all three facets of the ball. It's experience, right? In my opinion, I think it brings leadership. And this is something that the Giants stressed, I mean, pretty much since they fired Brian Dable, right? That whoever they were going to hire next, they want adults in the room. They want people that's going to hold them accountable. They want leaders amongst men, right? And you got one in John Harbaugh, and then you bring in experience on the coaching staff. I understand that there's going to be fans that aren't as optimistic about these hires, but I do think that if you look at it from the lens of not from when they're head coaches, right? Because they're not going to be head coaches, right? At least not right now, right? It's going to be less weight off of their shoulders. Matt Nagy's going to be able to specifically focus on the development of Jackson Dart and this offense, right? He's not going to be managing a whole team like he did when he was in Chicago. You look at Greg Roman. I mean, everywhere that Greg Roman has gone, right? The run game has been phenomenal. It's undisputable. It's been phenomenal everywhere that he's gone. And then you bring in, again, Brian Callahan, who I think he kind of got the short end of the stick in Tennessee. Granted, they didn't look that good, especially this year, right? But I mean, they were inept on offense. They didn't really have anything at the wide receiver position. I thought Cam Ward actually looked fairly solid. And then you look at Will Levis. I mean, injuries aside, boneheaded plays aside, which obviously, yes, those are two big things. I mean, looked pretty good in that offense. So he's going to be focusing right on the run game paired with Greg Roman. And then on top of that, he'll be helping with the development of Jackson Dart. Just those three coaches alone, I have it here. They've coached Peyton Manning, Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Alex Smith. These are very good quarterbacks that these coaches who have experience in the NFL have coached and can bring to a young rookie quarterback who needs some development, needs to change a couple things into his game. But I think with the season that he had, which I would give it an A+ season personally, I get really excited. And I think the fans should as well. Before we continue further, I see we got some comments in here. We got Fake Football Analyst. Appreciate you stopping by, my friend. He says Greg Roman will be huge for Scatabo and Tracy. Yeah, absolutely. I 1,000% agree. Again, when you look at Greg Roman's history, it should excite you. It should excite you. And okay, can we just briefly talk about this? I don't want to go on a tangent here. It is so weird looking at the Tennessee Titan fan base, the Ravens fan base, who I have a ton of respect for the Baltimore Ravens, but it feels like they've been talking about the Giants more than they've been talking about their own teams. I mean, and it is insane to me. Like, you got your head coach, you got your coordinators, you guys got your own situations going on. Like, all right, let's move past this. Like, come on now. Now, obviously, with Tennessee, we'll see how that goes this year. I think that'll be a fun game to watch. Chris, he says Browns offensive line is good. Yeah, listen, I think that, a lot of people, they automatically, saw this Browns offensive line this past season, right? And it was not that good. But there were so many things that factored into why the offensive line wasn't that good. I feel like a lot of people don't take that into consideration, right? You had aging veterans on that offensive line. Then on top of the aging veterans, you had players being injured left and right? And we have seen time and time again, it does not matter who you have under center. If you don't have the guys up front to protect your quarterback, to give him time to create plays, give him time to process the defense and, see what's going on in front of him, you're not going to win many games in this league. So again, I really did think that Mike Bloomberg was a home run hire by John Harbaugh. So I'm definitely feeling confident so far. Fake Football Analyst also says Willie Taggart couldn't handle FSU, but can handle the Giants. Listen. I get some heat from this sometimes from other Giants fans, but I do think that a lot of fans are starting to realize this. I don't think the stigma that the New York media is this big bully. I mean, especially when you look at some of the questions that are being asked. I mean, yes, you do have reporters that like to stir the pot a little bit, but that's their job. So, but we're here to talk about the hires. Come on, Aaron. We're here to talk about the hires. He also says people are complaining about ex-Titans coaches on the Giants, but the Titans had no roster. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think when you look at this Giants roster, I mean, compared to the Titans roster, it is miles ahead on both sides of the ball. When we can look at the wide receiver room, we can look at the running back room, we can look at tight ends. Let's switch it to the other side. I like the Giants' defensive line a lot more than I like the Titans' defensive line. Now, I will give them their secondary. I'll give them that. I would say it's a step ahead of the Giants' secondary. I think there's some proven talent on this roster, but we'll see how that goes via the draft and free agency. But you're absolutely right. So when you hire guys, again, like Callahan, like Nagy, like Harbaugh, you're bringing experience, you're bringing seasoned veterans into this locker room, and that's exactly what this Giants team needs. Now, the flip side to that, right, is, and I understand this because I've seen some people talk about this, and I think that it's a fair point to point out. This also could be a situation, and we hope this isn't, but this also could be a situation where it's too many cooks, right, in the kitchen, right? Too many alphas in one room. One person is voicing their opinions a little bit too much than what they should be. Another one isn't trying to step on anybody's feet. And then you have another one who doesn't know where he stands, right? So you hope that that's not the case and that these guys can coexist with each other as well as coexisting with John Harbaugh, who's going to oversee everything. But obviously, the thought process is that they can and that they will, right? Now, I will say this much. I will give John Harbaugh credit where credit is due. When a specific coach, right? It could be offensive coordinators, defensive backs coach, offensive line coach, does not matter. If it does not look good, he is not afraid to move on and find the next person to fill that position to make sure that that side of the ball is running on all cylinders, right? We've seen that time and time again in Baltimore, but we've also seen time and time again him get those hires right. So it's a little bit, if not, it's 50-50 on, trusting the process and kind of just diving in the water, trusting John Harbaugh that these are going to be the right hires. Now, we'll see what happens, right? Nagy, you're taking the job because you're hoping that after this season coming up, after the season is done, that you are putting yourself in the conversations of becoming a head coach again, right? Same thing with Brian Callahan. Typically, I mean, history has shown us that when these failed head coaches, get fired, they typically become passing game coordinators, quarterbacks coach, offensive coordinators, right, for like a year or two, kind of clean off that stain on their resume, and then they try to get another shot at becoming a head coach. And I think that this is the best place, at least on the available market, for these guys to accomplish that. Now, I will say this much, right? I do think, for me personally, outside of the Greg Roman hire, my favorite hire is the Denard Wilson hire. I think a lot of people kind of forget that when we were looking for a defensive coordinator for the Giants, right after we fired Wink Martindale, a lot of people wanted Denard Wilson. I mean, shoot, they interviewed Denard Wilson, right? That was someone that they really wanted. And a lot of people felt that he could bring a scheme similar to what Wink Martindale was doing, which we saw a ton of success, right? Now, there was some, things, especially like in the run game, that could have been better with Wink Martindale's scheme, but I think that Denard Wilson is going to bring a level of physicality, creativeness, and tenacity to this defense that we simply did not have under Shane Bowen. And we saw in little spurts with Charlie Bullen as our defensive coordinator towards the later half of the season. Now, in my honest opinion, as optimistic as I am about this coaching staff that they've put together, I do want to remain a little hesitant, and believe me, I'm excited. I'm very excited. As someone that was saying time and time again, I did not want the Giants to look in Harbaugh's direction. If he was fired, I wanted someone either like Minter or Chris Shula or even Clint Kubiak, a new voice, a younger coach. It was the right hire, right? I'm not going to complain about that. And I think that when you look at the quality of coaches that he's brought in, you can tend to trust the process a little easier than you would if this was a new head coach that hasn't done this before. But I'm fairly pleased, right? And I think right now the most important thing for this team is to obviously make sure that Jackson Dart develops correctly and things go smooth with that. But I mean, we got to see this run defense get better, right? We have to see this secondary improve. You know for a fact that this Giants run game, guys are going to have to pull better. We're going to need to be see, in my honest opinion, I think that they're going to attack the offensive line in free agency very heavy. I really do think that they are going to do what they can to get Tyler Linderbaum if he does, in fact, leave that Baltimore building. I would not be shocked if they spent that money that you could argue should go to Illuminor on Tyler Linderbaum. I would not be shocked. I mean, I think that he would actually really fit what John Harbaugh and Matt Nagy want on this offense, especially when you add in Greg Roman and his run schemes, right? So we have to see improvements there. I really do think, looking at Matt Nagy and looking how he runs his offense, I mean, that wide receiver 2 position is going to be very, very crucial. So listen, I have no issues re-signing Wan'Dale Robinson. I do think he's going to get more money than what people assume that he's going to make in the open market. So, I mean, I have a limit of what I would feel comfortable paying him if I was in that position. But I mean, it's going to be very interesting and intriguing to see what happens going forward, because now you have this staff falling into place, and we'll see what happens from there. They made some hires in their front office to also help out with the cap. This is a team that doesn't really use void years, right? I don't think we use void years at all, if I'm correct. I mean, Chad, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're one of the few teams that don't. So you hire someone that can come in and get the most out of this cap that we really haven't done with Abrams at the helm, right? And I think we're going to see a more progressive organization going forward, which is what this Giants team needs. So let's get to some of the comments here. Fake football analyst says, would you want another running back that fits in Roman's system to help Scatterbo? I think that they're going to I really do think that they're going to roll with Scatterbo and Tracy. I can't see them using, a 5th or 6th rounder on a running back. Maybe they'll pick up one as like an undrafted rookie free agent, right? And, consider him as like that RB3, maybe keep him on the practice squad. I can't see them really in that position. But I do see them investing in the fullback position, and I do think that they will be in play for Patrick Ricard. So we'll see what happens there. Chris says, Denard Wilson will rejuvenate Tyler Nubin's career. Hey, that's dope, right? And it kind of feels like all signs are pointed to either Caleb Downs or the Muaga kid. I'm probably butchering his name, the tackle. I feel like though it's going to come down to those two. And I'm someone that wants Carnell Tate or Jordan Tyson. But I do think that Caleb Downs would be an excellent fit in this defense. And, Tyler Nubin, I think, he had a level of hype coming out of college, right? He was an intercepting machine, and we really haven't seen that. Now, how much of that was Tyler Nubin? How much of that was just the scheme that Shane Bowen was, deploying? We will see, though, under Denard Wilson, because when you look at the safeties that have played under Denard Wilson, both in Tennessee and also in Baltimore, I mean, they typically do fairly well, and you need guys like also Javon Holland to take a step forward, because you look at the money that they've paid him. I mean, you look at what's really translated on defense. One would make the argument you got what you paid for, because he looked like how he looked like in Miami. But the other side to that is that there's more room for him to grow in his game. And we'll see that. We'll see how that translates in Denard Wilson's scheme. But Chris, I absolutely agree with you. I do think that we should see more improvement from Tyler Nubin. Now, Fake Football Analyst also says, would you keep your eyes on Taquan Thornton? Yeah, I was watching that interview. Taquan Thornton. I was watching that interview with Pat Leonard that he did during the Super Bowl. And I mean, listen, he is a deep threat, right? I mean, I think that he's in the same tier as Darius Slayton minus the drops. I think he's a little bit of a better route runner personally, but I think that he could be a wide receiver that you can get on a 1 year deal and it be fairly inexpensive. Now, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the cap, I mean, it exploded this year by a wide margin. And they're going to have a lot of money next year, too. I mean, right now, and I feel like every time I come on this camera, whether it's on this podcast, whether it's on other podcasts that I've been on, the Giants need to take advantage of this cap space while they have it. Yes, they do have guys like Malik Neighbors, Abdul, Jackson Dart, all on rookie contracts, but those three players alone can easily reset the markets in their respective positions, right? So take advantage of that cap while you can. Get creative with the cap. I'm tired of seeing teams like the Rams or teams like the Chiefs, for instance, or Philadelphia, right? Get creative with the cap. And we're saying to ourselves, damn, like, I mean, we used up all of this money that we had, and going into the offseason, we're talking about how much money we have, and we just blew right through it. Meanwhile, the Eagles are blowing through their cap, but they're getting all of these players, and you look at the contracts going down the line, and it's just void years, and they're not going to really be on the hook for that, and they'll just keep kicking the can down, and hey, it's resulted into Super Bowl wins, right? And that's what we're all here for. So I am excited to see the process and some of these contracts that the Giants will be giving out. I do think that they will be fairly active in free agency. I think they should re-sign Dexter Lawrence and extend him. I think that'll lower his cap as well. You can restructure Brian Burns' contract. You can restructure, I believe, Andrew Thomas's contract as well. I mean, for people that want to cut Bobby Okereke, I mean, there's so many different ways that they could create cap space right now, and they need to take advantage of that. But we'll see how that goes, right? Chris also says Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles for me at number 5, but I'd be happy with Carnell Tate. I mean, I wouldn't mind Sonny Styles in a trade back. I think 5 is a little too rich for me, but Caleb Downs, I would absolutely have no issues with that 5. He is that dude. And if there's anything that we know, is that Harbaugh really values his safeties, right? They took Kyle Hamilton fairly high. You look at Malachi Starks, who they took at, I believe it was picked 27th overall just this past season. I mean, they really do value the safety position. And if you have an opportunity to draft the best safety in this class, I mean, you can't fault John Harbaugh for going that route. But yeah, guys, I mean, look, I'm very intrigued to see, how this staff has really come along and, how it's filled up. Again, I think it's a wait and see, but you can understand the excitement behind it, right? I am intrigued to see, how does, the defensive line look. I'm not too familiar with Dennis Johnson, if I'm being honest, but I am intrigued to see how that is. But I really, really do like the Brian Callahan hire. I've seen so many people have mixed reviews on it on X, and it's just, to me, it's kind of baffling. I mean, seeing the amount of fans that are just not in on this hire, and I really don't understand it. I think, honestly, it's going to help this offense, let alone Jackson Dart, so much in his development. Pairing him also, again, with Roman and Matt Nagy, I mean, just, again, 3 seasoned coaches. I think that's really going to help out this offense of Jackson Dart. Chris, I'm there with you. He says, bring on free agency. Yeah, I'm definitely there with you, buddy. I'm counting down the days. We'll also be releasing a video on some free agent targets for you guys. We've kind of been teasing it a little bit on our social media, which you can find us on all social media platforms under the Giant Topic. The link will be in the description box below. Also, have not mentioned this entire stream, but hit that subscribe button, leave a like. We'll try to get this channel to 700 subscribers. I know that we can do it. I know that it's very much possible, and we'll be pumping out more content and more consistent content as well for you guys. But yeah, I mean, free agency, we'll be releasing a video of some players that I would like to see the New York Giants go after that I think makes sense for this Giants team, not just this season, but going forward. So definitely stay tuned for that one. I'm really excited for that. But yeah, guys, I'm very intrigued. I'm very excited. I think you guys should be too. But with that being said, y'all, we appreciate you guys stopping by. Again, we'll be releasing a video on free agency, and if there's any more hires, which I don't really see happening. I think this offense coaching staff, it looks like it's pretty much set in stone. We'll see with the defense. I mean, I don't really see them really adding anybody, but let's trust the process. That's what I keep telling myself. That's what I'm gonna keep telling you guys. Trust the process until they give you a reason not to trust the process. These guys haven't even played the down yet. The season just finished this past Sunday, so let's give it some time. We got to trust this process, what you hired John Harbaugh for. But yeah, so we'll see you guys on the next video. We appreciate you stopping by. Let's go to New York.